Hi, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Immigrant Mom Power. Welcome. If you are just joining us for the first time, this is the Immigrant Mom. My name is Njombua-Fombad. Let's give it a couple minutes for people to join. Once you join, please do me a favor and share. Because what we have to talk about today is too good for just you alone. We want as many people to join us as possible. So let's just wait for people to join us and then share. I would share on my own timeline. Hello, hello. Once you join, please let me know who's here so I can acknowledge you. I love to do that. Hi, I see someone just joined. Please say hi. Let me know that you are watching and where you're watching from, and of course, share. Hi, everyone. I can see your likes. People are trickling in. Thank you so much for joining. This is Estelle, and we are on the Immigrant Mom Power. It's a series we do bi-weekly to celebrate our journey, the Immigrant Mom's journey, the Immigrant Mom's story. So please, let's take this time as you're joining, share. Who we have with us today, and the subject we have to talk about is too good for you alone. So please, let's share. That's what I'm doing, sharing to all the groups, and so many more people can join us. We have 2 more minutes and we'll get it started. Please share so we could get this conversation rolling. Hopefully today I'll be able to see the comments as they're coming through. For some reason, we have been having issues on this platform seeing comments, but hopefully we could. Hopefully I'll be able to see the comments. That way we can have this interactive. Say hi once you join. Tell me where you're watching us from. Say hi, share on your platform so we can, the more the merrier. The more people we have on, the merrier it will be. And, you know, we will have a lot to talk about. Yay, hi. Hi, Sandra, I see you. Thank you so much for joining. How are you? How's my baby girl? It's been long. We need to catch up. Thank you for joining. Please share. All right. Because we have so much to talk about today, I want us to get right into it. And the hope is that people will join us and they'll join the conversation. If you are just joining, my name is Estelle Mbaacha. I'm the founder of the Immigrant Mom organization. It's a nonprofit birthed out of my struggle as an immigrant mother, not having my mom with me as I transitioned into being a mom and raising children of my own, having to raise these children in a culture that I did not grow up in. I did not grow up in America. I came to this country as an adult. So I don't know little things as the playground or taking your children to Chick-fil-A like people who grew up here would know. And so this organization is bringing everyone together, immigrant moms, to say, let's learn what it takes to raise a child in a country that we did not grow up in. Hi, Sister Jay. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate your presence and your support. Please leave a comment so let me know that you are here. I would love to acknowledge you. Love to give a shout out to you, say hi to you, and don't forget to share so we have many more people joining us. All right, so the last session for the Immigrant Mom Power was canceled because my family lost our grandmom. We lost our grandmom, and it is still a very difficult time, and that's why I'm putting on black today, because we're still mourning. But I know that she would want for me to move on and carry on with my vision in all that I'm doing. So thank you to everyone who's reached out. Thank you to everybody who has sent their sympathies and condolences. We really appreciate it. But we're back on today with an awesome guest. Thank you, Benjamina, Bate, Lilian. I see all of you. I'm so excited. Don't forget to share. Let's share. Thank you, Sister Foluje. Let's share so many more people can join us. As is our tradition, before we bring on our guests, we want to talk about Immigrant Mom Nugget, something that we can learn each time, some little tip we can learn. And today I just wanted to pass on this information that as immigrants, sometimes we let people get away with things they should not get away because we're so afraid. I watched a video of this person who was doing jokes in Walmart, and he encountered this immigrant man and said, you have stolen, you're shoplifting. And the guy's like, no, I have never shoplifted in my life. And I know it's an immigrant man because I could get from his accent. Hi, Asanta, thank you for joining. I could get from his accent that he was an immigrant. And so this guy who is pranking him starts saying, okay, so take off your shirt. And this man just wants to prove that he's not a shoplifter. As an immigrant, we're always too careful not to be on the bad side of the law, to a point that sometimes we might let people take advantage of us. This man takes off his shirt. The other man says, pull your pants down. And he is pulling his pants down. And that broke my heart. It broke my heart because I could tell from his own point, as the immigrant that he is, that he did not want to be on the other side. Because if at all this guy was a police officer or had the right to do what he was doing, that could mean that, this man could have been going to jail even though he didn't shoplift. My point here is we need to stand our ground. And when you stand your ground by knowing, by gaining knowledge, by knowing that not just anybody can walk up to you and tell you to do certain things. Just because we're immigrants does not mean that we're going to be treated like trash. It reminded me of when I went to the post office, and for some reason, the lady who was servicing me, or who was attending to me, made a mistake and was going to charge me $50 for her mistake. I thought about that video and I had to stand my ground. And I said, you are going to pay me back my $50. I could easily have walked away from it because, again, we hardly want those encounters. We do not want confrontation. We're easy to back out. We allow people to get their way. But I'm saying, if you know your rights and you know your right by gaining knowledge, you're not going to be rude. You're not going to cause a scene, but you're going to stand on your ground to ensure that your rights are not disrespected as an immigrant. All right. I hope this has helped someone, and I hope that, we can take this well and apply it. Thank you guys so much for joining. Please, I see you. Hi, Nina. Hi, everyone. Please go ahead and share. Let us share. Let's just do the sharing so many more people can join us. So at this time, I would like to invite our guest speaker. I'll tell you a little bit about her, and of course, she'll tell us more about who she is. Today, we're talking about the dynamics of a blended family. What's a blended family? Before we get into this, let me tell you a bit about our guest speaker. Her name is Antoinette, and she is the founder of Within Life Coaching Services, a mother of a blended family. She's a mother of a blended family, so she's telling us what she knows, okay? She's a mother of a blended family with 4 beautiful children. She's an empath and believes it is her calling to use all her life experiences and connections to help in whatever way she can. She's a lover of writing, music, and everything that builds imagination and growth. Welcome, Miss
Hi,
Antoinette, thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much for having me.
Definitely, please. We're so excited. You're about to talk about something that we don't hear that much, and it's so needed in our community. I know I just gave a summary, but just tell our audience, who are you? Are you an immigrant? Where are you from? Just tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Excel. My name is Antoinette. I'm an immigrant from Cameroon. I immigrated here in 2002, so I've been here for about 18 years. I was born into a blended family, which was kind of it was like an extension of my family because I never really got to interact with a lot of my blended family members. I have half sisters that grew up in separate communities and regions and countries than me from my father's side. And I also have tons of cousins that I never really got to know as a child growing up because of the circumstances of um, blended families back in Africa and all the problems that they typically have with the parents usually having issues and fighting and disagreeing with each other and passing it on to the children. So I am a product of that cycle. I have been through some trauma. I've been through like growing up without my father around. So that was another stressor that, really affected me as a child. And I know what it's like to be in that circumstance. And I used all that to help build my family. In my mind, I saw everything about a blended family that was dysfunctional, and I saw everything about a family that I really wanted. So I took that, and I'm still learning every day as I go and growing and building my own family. So I'm here to share my experiences.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Hmm.
Let me say this. When you were filling out the form to come on
Hmm.
here to talk to us, the
Hmm.
couple things that you wrote that really stood out to me, and I just wanted us to dig a little deeper on the things that you said. You said, and I quote you, the notion of being judged and seen as unstable was a curse I carried with me for a long time.
Hmm.
I have to say, I definitely lived in some states of self doubt and a mindset that failure was expected.
Yes.
Before we get into that detail, what is a blended family? So that we're all on the same page
Page.
with our
Okay.
viewers. What is a blended family?
So a blended family is pretty much a family that consists of members. Two. It obviously always has two parents, and the children are not necessarily from like a nuclear circumstance. The children from like other relationships that come into the marriage, and then sometimes you have children, you know, that are born into that blended family already. So it's like a mixture of children from outside and children from within that nuclear family. Yeah.
Okay. So when I read, what you said, what was that curse? What was your experience that caused you to feel that it was some kind of instability in your household? Like, just talk to us a little bit about what that was about, that mindset of failure was expected.
Yes, because the thing is, back in Africa, and I'm sure in a lot of cultures, not just Africa, there's this misconception that kids that grow up in families that are broken, that have like maybe single mothers or single fathers or parents that are separated, are doomed in any future relationships or marriages because they don't have any experiences of actually visualizing what a marriage or relationship looks like. So a lot of people back in Africa and a lot of people even in other cultures tend to judge those children based on that notion alone. They never bother to a lot of times sometimes even get to know the person or get to experience the person or even get to help the person grow, because sometimes you can have a really good person who just needs a little bit of help, right? And so there's that notion that a lot of women, especially men, typically hardly have those issues because, again, it's kind of like the Africa is, unfortunately, we're still fighting for women to kind of have some kind of equal rights with men right now, even up to today. So it mostly affects a lot of women who tend to find themselves in situations where they have to work extra hard to win relationships or to win, love and compassion over women who grow up in families that are, nuclear. So yeah,
Mhm.
so that's one of the things that growing up back home, and I did experience that actually in my life, where I had circumstances where some of my relationships probably ended because I was, defined as being in that group. So it consistently really affects the mind, and it makes you start to wonder if that's something that's just a part of you, since it was attached to you, not of your fault, not of your making, and not because you chose that circumstance, but because you were growing up in that circumstance. So
Right.
I just want a lot of women to understand that you don't have to think like that. You
Mhm.
have the opportunity as an individual to create your own family, to create your own future, to create your own world that you dream of. And the funny thing is, most women that grow up in such circumstance, or most children that grow up in such circumstance, have experienced both sides of the spectrum. They've experienced the trauma of just not even having a functional family, and they know what they would love to have in a family when they have one someday.
Right.
So they can easily take those experiences and actually build and
Right.
create a really good
Right. So
environment for their own future children.
for today, I would
Mhm.
like for us to have this discussion and focus on the effects that it could potentially have on children, as well as on the parents or the people, the father, the mother. And I
Mhm.
wanted to even to talk to you about, like, to stay on your experience a little bit, because you said you dealt with some shame
Mhm.
just because people knew that you didn't grow up with your dad. And so they kind of tag you with that to say this is a product of a failed relationship or a failed
Exactly.
marriage. And that triggered some shame with you.
Mhm. Yes,
And you felt like you could not be in a good relationship as a result of that, even though it was no fault of yours.
absolutely.
But
Yes.
you say you were better equipped to become a mom in a blended family. How is that? What exactly did you take from that not so good experience into your current experience that is bringing about a nice, a healthy blended family?
First of all, I have to say, just from a child coming from a family that's separated from, and having to enter into a new family, um, with another parent, like a co-parent, I would say it comes with a lot of stress to begin with. The child, first of all, hasn't had enough life experiences to even understand why she has to be, find herself in, he or she, sorry, has to find themselves
Mhm.
in that circumstance. So uh, there's that stress to deal with. There's also the stress of they blame themselves sometimes, depending on their age. A lot of kids that are a little bit older, maybe like, 7, when they're like they've passed that young young childhood stage and they're starting to go get into that adolescent age, they tend to blame themselves. Sometimes studies have shown, because sometimes they feel like it's their fault that the previous marriage failed, because typically as parents sometimes we tend to have arguments and stuff in front of kids. So, and our lives are literally revolved sometimes around our kids, and so they tend to blame themselves. And then there's all the dynamics of they have to travel, back and forth from one family to another, and then they have to, assimilate another member, like maybe like a sibling, like a step sibling, into their routines. So it's a lot of changes, and if it took that long for them to be stable with whatever they had, it's going to take some time for them to accept this new reality and actually build stability. But I'll tell you one thing though, however long it takes is so dependent on how the adults in that relationship or in that blended family handle it, because at the end of the day those are just children. And I know
Right.
you talked about maybe how it affects the adults. uh, there is always fear. It's a standard, because you are literally moving on. It's a change too. So
Mhm.
you're dealing with that by yourself, and then you're dealing with the possibility of having like conflict with your ex or your child's other parent. And so it's a lot of stress all at once, but there's always a way to slowly build and get to a place of neutrality.
Right. So here on the screen, I just
Mm-hmm.
found some different scenarios that
Mm-hmm.
a blended family can manifest, because
Mm-hmm.
there are many ways. You have divorced with children,
Mm-hmm.
you have remarried, recoupled, living together. That's two people coming together
Mm-hmm.
with children from their previous relationships. Then you have single mothers, and then you have divorced dads. And then another thing that I found really interesting, which I would like to share with
Mm-hmm.
our guest. One second while this opens.
Mm-hmm.
A Boston University psychologist researcher reported that of the career women who earned over $100,000 and had married men with children, over 75% said that if they had to do it again, they would not marry a man with children. I am on so many women groups and we hear this all the time. What is this stigma in our immigrant communities that continues
Mm-hmm.
to ravage us? And how can we put an end to this?
I think it's first of all the reason why they say that is because of their previous experience that they've had with that remarrying somebody, and because it wasn't functional, so it was more difficult for them. It's easy for them to say, "Oh, I don't think I'm ever going to put myself in this position because I've been through this bad experience." Again, it's all about how the relationship, transpired. I'm sorry to say, but that's really just what it is. And so, like, if you start thinking that, if I was ever put in a position where I had to remarry and I would never do it, that's what you're wishing. You need to always be thinking, oh, you know what? My marriage is not good, but, I'm willing to work on it. I have to work on it. What can I do to make it better? Because what you think
Right,
is what you get. What you think is
right,
what how you act, and that's what you build. So your mentality has to always shift to the point where it's like, okay, I know it's not working as well as I want, but what can I do to make it work better, to get me to a place where I'm not thinking negatively, like, oh, I don't think I could ever do this again, but I'm thinking, oh, this is just awesome. I'm lucky to be where I am. That's the first step. It's all about the mindset. And the
right,
second step is actually doing all those things that are necessary to change all the circumstances that you find yourself in. Like, for example, like if communication is a huge thing,
mhm,
it's a huge problem among blended family parents. I'll tell you that. There's this guilt from maybe the other parent that feels like um, this is not my child, so I don't want to take the place of the other parent that they have. So
right,
they kind of like passively create that relationship. That is a wrong move. That's just the truth about it. Because in doing that, then without even knowing, they kind of create a space in the other parent, the nuclear parent's mind, that they're not trying hard enough to build a relationship with their own child. So it starts to create this divide among just within the family. So the parents that are the step parents, you have to actively participate, not passively, actively. Passively means, oh, this is a child that lives with me, so I'm responsible for them. So I'll take care of them. I'll give them food, shelter, whatever. No, that's passively. Actively is building your own relationship with that child, taking that child out to places by yourself, taking her out, taking him or her out to do fun things that they love without their nuclear parent, so they can get to build their own relationship with you. I tell you, a lot of times problems start from there. Because if you create that bond with that stepchild, it automatically links you to your partner, and you have more in common because now you can talk about things concerning all the children together. It's not, oh, I'm handling this child, you're handling that child, because that always creates some kind of a separatism, and it always creates problems. So I would say that's a big thing to start with. And I would say that the
but
other thing to do,
I,
sorry. Uh-huh.
no, no, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry for cutting you. I'll just keep tab of my question.
No, that's okay. Yeah. And then the other thing to do is, first of all, you have to decide as a unit, how do we want to raise our children? It has to be, you have to set boundaries. You have to have a system that works and that you use for all. Obviously, every child is different, that's for sure. But there's some general values that you have to agree on, that you use to guide your children. So that way you're all on the same page. Because the problem is, a lot of times the parents raise their own children from outside relationships separately, and then only focus on raising their nuclear children, the children they had together in the relationship together. And that always creates conflict. That is for sure.
Mhm. I was just going to say this since we're on the topic that sometimes
Mm-hmm.
a parent who has a child prior to a relationship or prior to a marriage feels very protective over that child and may even prevent the other parent, their spouse, from being as involved as they would want to.
That
Shed
is,
some light on this.
yes. But that's the thing. If you're going to marry that person, you have to be willing to trust and actually allow them to build a relationship with your child, because your child is going to be part of your family. It's going to be that person's child. That person is going to raise your child. So if you're going to choose to marry that person in the first place, you have to be very certain that you are willing to trust that person enough to be a parent to your child. If not, you need to rethink before going on with the relationship, because you're only going to lead yourself to the space where you're raising your child separately from the general family, and then it becomes a problem. So you, as the parent of that child, the new parent of that child, has to allow the other person the opportunity to build the relationship. And the
Right.
other person needs to understand that if they feel like they're not given the opportunity, they need to speak up. And speaking up doesn't mean blaming, because again, that's how arguments always start. You don't
Right.
say, "Oh, you are preventing, you're not allowing me. It's because of you. I don't have a relationship with this person." You say, "I really appreciate if you could just allow me and let me to kind of have some opportunity to have to spend time with this child, so I can build my own relationship." There's always a way of communicating that the other person feels that you're asking, because it's a need that you have, and it's something that will grow your family.
Right.
It's not something that will break it, it's something that will grow it. So it's
Right.
all about how you communicate it.
Right.
But you
And I
don't
know,
don't sit
when,
in the sidelines.
sorry about that. When we talk,
Mm-hmm.
we try to envision all the different dynamics of
Mm-hmm.
how the scenarios can play out. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always as easy as we're
Mm-hmm.
talking.
Oh yeah,
Relationships
absolutely.
end because people have problems,
Yeah.
because people, for whatever reason, are unable to stay in that relationship, but their children born out of it.
Mm-hmm.
How do I trust, for example, that my
Mm-hmm.
child
Mm-hmm.
would have the same values in the other house that I have to send her out to?
That's the thing. When you're in a blended family situation, you have to focus on your household. You cannot focus on the other household. The other household is not yours. You're not there, you don't know what goes on there. But if you focus on yours, you set boundaries in yours, so your children all know that these are the rules of this house. This is how we flow and function in this house. You know, they will learn to slowly assimilate and accommodate themselves to the situation whenever because these kids have to spend time with, in separate households. So whenever they're in your house, they will slowly grow into it, because you have to teach them from the get-go. It's not something that you wait for years and then you put on them, because that's not going to work. And even if there's, kind of like pushback from the other household, don't budge, don't give up, because it's better to stick with what you know is positive and will build that household that you have, than having to retaliate the other person. Now the child is having two people butting heads. It's not helping them, and it's not
Mhm.
helping you, and it's not helping your family grow. So keep your intentions good, keep your intentions positive, build set your boundaries, create your values for your children, and live by that, by those rules, no matter what's going on outside of your household.
Right, right. And
Mm-hmm.
here, out here for us as immigrants, the dynamic is
Mm-hmm.
different.
Yes.
Back in Cameroon, where we both are from, there's hardly
Mm-hmm.
ever a thing as custody. When a
Mm-hmm.
relationship is over, one parent normally has full custody, and
Mm-hmm.
then the child only has a relationship, maybe discretionary or if they could agree. But in
Mm-hmm.
America, it's different. There's such a
Mm-hmm.
thing as 50-50, where
Mm-hmm.
a parent will have visitation rights and
Mm-hmm.
would have to see.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for people who are in that situation? They really, for lack of a better word, hate.
Mm-hmm. But I would have to just beg them that honestly, you should never ever, unless the other parent is being abusive or like that's the different situation. You should never ever prevent your child from having a relationship with their other parent, because at the end of the day, that child is built and groomed from the both of you. No matter what, even if your relationship doesn't work out, it's actually a blessing for a child to still have two functioning parents than to have one that's preventing the other. Like I'll take myself for an example. Like I grew up with a single mother. My mother, I never once heard my mother say anything bad about my father. Not once. I'm not kidding. She always, even when I grew up as an adult and I had started building my own relationships with him and I had my own issues that I had with him, she would always still remind me, hey, that is still your father. So allow the children to grow up and build their own relationships and decide the nature of their own relationships with the other parent. Don't take that opportunity away from them, because if you do, they will end up, hating you for it, and then they end up possibly losing the other parent, and they may end up possibly having no relationship with both parents. So it's always better to give the child and the other parent the opportunity to create a relationship. It builds a more stable child, even in circumstances where they're separate, even in relationships where they're not, it's not even a blended situation where they're just separated. The parents still need to allow each other to have the opportunity to build that relationship with the child, because it's important. Children come from both parents, and both parents deserve to nurture and grow that child.
Right, right. Now, let
Hmm.
me ask you this very real question
Hmm.
as women that we are. Because we tend to think that because your husband had been in a relationship with a woman in the past and they had a
Hmm.
child, there's the potential that they could always get back into a relationship or have a fling. And
Hmm.
so, because of that insecurity, women try
Hmm.
to control a
Hmm.
man's access to his child that he had with another woman. So there are two things lingering there. There's insecurity, and then there's the lack of acceptance.
Hmm.
That's a dynamic.
Hmm.
In your case, you have a blended family. Are you
Yes.
dealing with issues of acceptance and insecurity?
I wouldn't say I am, honestly. Sometimes it's challenge. It was challenging in the beginning. The beginning is always challenging, especially if you get pushed back. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I probably have my own issues that I probably didn't handle as well as I should have, and I've learned from those, and I'm growing every day. But when you have pushback, I don't think the insecurities necessarily came from me, and I've learned, and because of that situation, I've actually learned that you have to trust your partner. You have to trust that the boundaries that you have in your relationship, trust that the love and respect that they have for you will carry over no matter when and how they interact with the other person, because they will have to interact with the other person. You have no choice. They have a child together, and that person technically is kind of like part of your circle, because they're raising a child that you're raising as well. So I know it's difficult, and a lot of times reasons are given for people to feel that way or for women to feel that way, and people have weaknesses, but that's a conversation that I think couples have to have if they feel like they are having issues trusting their partner. I think, because I think people are always so scared to say what they feel. I've noticed that in a lot of relationships. But think about it, the more you don't say what you feel, the more you keep living in doubt, and the more the possibility of that thing keeps to happen keeps growing. So it's always something to tackle immediately. If you feel like you don't trust that person, being with the other person, address it, not like in a way of you're attacking them, but say, you know what, I'm sorry, but I actually really feel insecure about the fact that you're going to, you know, be spending time with this person. Let them give you the reassurance. And by them giving you the reassurance, now they are accountable to keep their word, even if in circumstances where they might not have. If you give that, open that room for conversation, you allow it to be known, and now they are accountable for it. And so they're more likely to not go against it. So I would say have a conversation if you have doubts with the other person, and you can't control the other person, because sometimes, yeah, you said some women will deliberately, maliciously try to extend themselves into, into your family because of maybe jealousy or regret, or, however they feel. But you can only control what you can do, and what you can do is to make sure that your relationship is solid and stabilized, and that's what you need to do. I'm sorry.
Where?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Our
Yeah, I
internet
can
is
hear
kind
you now. Okay. Sorry.
all right. Okay.
Hmm.
Oh, hopefully we can get through. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you well. Can you hear
All
me?
right. So the next question I was going to ask, yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. I can
Okay.
see you. Hopefully we
Okay.
pull through.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. So the next thing I was going to ask, about so trusting, understanding,
Mm-hmm.
building your own, maybe you're dealing with your own insecurities, or having just reaffirming or reassuring your partner.
Mm-hmm.
What is the
Mm-hmm.
role of reassurance? Do you think the other party should reassure however many times necessary that they are only keeping that relationship for the sake of the child? Because the dynamic of, if there is a lack of trust between a husband and a wife, a husband, for example, who
Mm-hmm.
has a child, if he does not
Mm-hmm.
continue to reassure his wife that
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing going on with the other
Mm-hmm.
woman, that tends to affect even the woman's relationship with the child. What's the
Exactly.
role that reassurance will play? And do you think it's important?
I think reassurance is important, but I don't think it needs to get to a point where it's overbearing. And if it gets to the point where it's overbearing, then I think the spouse, you as the person that has the child with the other person, has to take a look at yourself and be like, okay, what are the things that I'm doing that could be creating this doubt in my partner? What am I, like, are there some things that I can change? Are there, do I need to have a conversation with my ex just so she's aware that, okay, there's certain things that I feel like maybe she's pushing the boundary. She's aware I don't appreciate it. And maybe we need to find a way to, communicate and cooperate without having to create issues in my family, and make them understand that when they create those issues, it doesn't only affect the adults, it affects the children even more. If maybe sometimes you bring it from that perspective, the person might actually be willing to listen because they know that it's going to affect their child, you know. And if it has to come to a point where you have to interact in a very minimal way for a time given, nothing is ever set in stone. That's the thing about life. You have to go with the flow of life, literally. You can't say, oh, I'm never going to see her, because that's not realistic. But if you have to separate yourself for some time from that person to give your
Right,
spouse that, you know,
right,
feeling of, okay, I feel confident, I feel, then you have to look at yourself and decide what you need to do to fix it. Because if your spouse keeps complaining, it could be it's just her insecurities, and it could be you're giving her a reason, or the other person is giving her a reason. And if it's the other person, the ex giving the reason, you need to help your spouse understand that it's not coming from you, it may be coming from outside, so she can try to focus on your household and not outside people from outside.
right. Luteline, Luteline says if you have to be reassured every day, then there's a problem.
Exactly. Exactly. It shouldn't get to the point where it's overbearing, because you need to be able to trust your spouse. And if there's issues that you feel need to be addressed, you need to voice them, respectfully. You're not blaming them, you're not accusing them, because I tell you, that's I've made those mistakes myself, where you start a communication with attacking, like, okay, it's because of you, it's this, it's that. It never works from there. That's just a disaster waiting to happen. But if you're going with, okay, this is what's happening, this is how I feel, I'm sorry, I'm not, it's not about blaming you, it's how I feel, about the circumstance. So is there something that we need to do to be able to fix this so I can feel better about our relationship? So there's always a way to communicate things, like the way you feel like you're heard, and then the person actually hears you instead of them feeling like you're attacking them. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about
Okay.
discipline.
You're kind of breaking up.
How do you discipline
You're kind of
your,
breaking up.
like,
So, uh-huh.
oh, can you hear me?
I can hear
Hope
you
we can
now.
pull through this. Can you hear me perfect? All right. I was going
I
to talk about
know.
discipline, the
Yeah, I
subject
can
of
hear you now.
discipline. It's
Mm-hmm.
really touchy. It's
Mm-hmm.
touchy to discipline your own children. Talk less of your stepchildren or your partner's children. Oh my goodness.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
As a can you hear me at all?
Uh-oh. I can hear you.
No?
You're mute. It's mute.
Oh, that's weird. All right, let me
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know if I'm still live, but I'm waiting for her to come back. We're just having some network
can,
issues.
can you
There
hear
we
me
go.
now?
Now I can. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Apologize for I'm not sure what's going on, but whenever it has to do with technology, we expect the unexpected.
I think they
Okay.
say
So my
when
question
a
was
bunch of
about
people
discipline and
join.
how
Oh,
discipline
sorry.
is
Hmm. Sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
yeah, I was talking about discipline and how
Hmm.
touchy it is, especially with your own children. In America, it's a touchy subject. How do you even
Hmm.
discipline another person's child? This is your husband's child, of course.
Exactly.
As how do you deal
Yes. To begin,
with
can,
that?
can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
So
All
let
right.
the audience tell us, because for some reason I think there's some lapse in our communication. But Sister Folujay says she can hear and see us both. Can you hear us? Can you see us? Or is this? I'm not sure what's going on. Please let me know if you can hear and see us.
Okay. So again, I would go back to the point of, okay, creating your values for your family and your boundaries for your family. You all have to be on the same page as parents to begin with, period. That is so important, because both parents need to be aware about what the values of the household are to begin with, and what the boundaries are. And then there's also the reality of being aware of the relationship dynamic between each parent and each child, because it's always different, especially in blended family situations. You have to take that into account. You do not have a choice, period. The way you might discipline your nuclear family children, meaning like the children that you have with the person you're married to, it's probably not likely the same way. And for good reason. You spend 100% of the time with those children. So you get to interact with them more. You get to know little perks, little things, you get to know how you can catch them in little, you know, when they're trying to be stubborn, but you get to spend way less time with that other child to begin with. So it's going to take a little bit of time to grow that relationship to a point where sometimes even meets where your values and your boundaries truly extend to. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So you have to take that into
Mhm.
account. Um, you have to always take that into account when you're dealing, but the basic rules and values of your family need to always be your go-to. And then if you find yourself in
Mhm.
a situation where you're like, okay, I've met that situation, and it's beyond that. What do I do? You have to assess that now individually as the person experiencing it with that child, and discuss it now with the other parent, because that's like a new thing now. That's beyond your boundary, right? So you have to now figure out what to do. And circumstances like that, in most cases, once you have those clear boundaries set, they happen just sporadically or periodically. They don't happen all the time, but if you don't have the initial values and boundaries, they tend to happen very often. And that's where, like, there's really no system, because there's really no system in place, and that's where you have more problems disciplining the children of the
Mhm.
family. So I would say that has been my experience. That's been what I've seen with a lot of other blended families. And if you go that route, it usually will minimize the situation where you find yourself not being able to discipline a child from the other parent.
Right. And so, for your
Mhm.
experience, how are you able to assure
Mhm.
yourself that you are treating all your children equally?
Um,
And do you face any guilt that you may not be treating them equally?
in the beginning, sometimes I think I probably did, and I think it's because I never really had the opportunity to. My stepdaughter was really young when I, met her. She was literally born. I met her when she was born. So in the beginning, I never really got to build a relationship with her, and just because of some friction that we had, her mother had probably with me, and I didn't hold it against her because I know people deal with things differently. That's what it is, but it kind of hindered me from like building a relationship. So I've always been, I tried, after realizing that, I was aware of the fact that my relationship with my stepdaughter was what it was. It was growing. I knew what I wanted it to be. It wasn't where I wanted it to be. So now the work was, okay, what do I do to build it up to what I wanted to be? So as the years progressed and she started to get older to a point where she could understand things for herself and by herself, then I started putting my input even more. That's why I say being aware of the relationship that you have with each child is so important, because that's always where you start off with. You have to accept that. You cannot force, something that's not there. You have to grow into what you want it to be. So that's
Right.
that's what
Right.
that's what I did.
Right. I mean, we could go on and on. There are really so many things I wanted us to talk about, but because our internet connection is flaky, I wanted,
Mhm.
to talk about your practice, your life
Okay.
coaching services, because a lot of people
Mhm.
need this. A
Yes.
lot of women or even men just
Mhm.
want someone to talk to because they
Yes.
find themselves in a difficult blended family situation. How do
Mhm.
you work with people? How can they reach you and all that
Okay.
information? Please share with the audience.
Yes. So I have a website. My link is healloveandgrow.com. And you can check me out there. And you can always send me a message through there, or you can email me at Antoinette, my first name, at healloveandgrow.com. That's my website. Anytime if you have any questions. And I offer like complimentary sessions, 30-minute complimentary sessions. So you never know, even if it's just something that's like minute you want to talk about, you can always call and get the complimentary session, and you can learn a lot from that even, and go with that. And then if you feel like, okay, it's something that you might need extended help, I'm always available. I have office times, and it's on my website, and I can always email back and forth. And I have a phone number as well. It's a Google number. It's 972-292-8551, and anybody can reach me that way as well. And I'm actually about to start a Q&A, Facebook live sessions, like once a week. Stay tuned. I'll be posting it on my link. My link on Facebook is within, and my link on IG is within as well. So those are all the ways that people can reach me at any time.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you
Hmm.
so much.
No
I know a
problem.
lot of people would need this service. A lot of
Hmm.
people would need to contact you. Just want someone to talk to, someone they can, express themselves to, and is going to be such a great value to our community. I wish we could stay longer. I really have a lot more questions and scenarios. But because, again, of the flakiness of the internet, I don't want us to lose our viewers. So thank you so much. Thank
No
you so much
problem.
for
I
joining
told,
us. Thank you
yeah.
for sharing from your heart. I don't know if you
Thank
have
you.
any last words of wisdom to share with our
Yes.
audience.
Yes. I just want people to know that success doesn't happen overnight. You know, you have to build and grow what you want for yourself. Always keep a positive mindset, because that mindset is what will lead you to your actions, and your actions is what will lead you to your results. And if you always have to be cognizant of what your shortcomings are. You're not perfect. Nobody is perfect. And in every relationship, you will have your shortcomings. Assess them, come up with your goals, slowly, implement them and grow your family. And the main thing to remember about a blended family is your intent. Your intentions always have to be good, no matter you know, what you do, um, what interventions you do, or what solutions you come up with. The intent has to be good. The intent has to be, will it grow my family? Will it create growth in my family? That is what you should always focus on. And if you do that, even in the toughest circumstances, you can pull through.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
You're
This
welcome.
everyone
Thank you,
says
everybody.
thank you so much. Here are the comments. Sister Foluje says loads of advice right there. Great session, insightful. The comments are coming in. Thank you. Well, guys, we're gonna have wrap it up here today. And thank you so much for joining. Please share so people who are not here can watch the replay and can learn a thing or two. Until next 2 Thursdays from today, I'll be back with another guest. Thank you guys so much and have a great night. Thank you,
Thank
Antoinette.
you. Have a great night. Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Mhm.